Good evening, everyone. Today is the 28th of January, and we're talking about managing cravings. So hello from everybody who's out there and actually already heard this introduction. So I'm going to get started right away because you don't need to hear it 2 times. Let me get to sharing my screen again with you. Okay, for some reason I'm having difficulty sharing my screen. Just a minute, I'm going to try again. There we go. That looks like a little bit better. Okay. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Elena Jordan. If you're coming to this call for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. We've been running these calls every morning, every Monday evening for the last, can you believe it, folks? It's 5.5 years. We're going to be celebrating our 6th anniversary with doTERRA in May. So a lot of exciting things coming up before then. Chinese New Year is our next big holiday. And of course, Valentine's Day for all of you who are celebrating with your Valentines, whether you are in a relationship or just have someone that you love dearly. Before I was married, I have to say, and I actually at one point didn't have a boyfriend either, I used to send Valentines to all my elderly aunts and uncles. And I love sending that out because for them, perhaps they were widows or widowers, and they didn't receive a lot of Valentines, and it just made me feel good to be able to show love to other people. And I hope that as Valentine's Day approaches, you also begin to feel that you want to spread the love with a lot of other people. So today we're talking about kill your cravings. Now we're calling it the Kill Your Cravings Challenge, not because we're going to have you do something extraordinary or become part of any contest, but because it is or it can be a challenge for some of us. Killing your cravings basically means that the things that we probably should not eat or that are difficult for us to control are actually the things that we actually become immune to, that we create situations or different methods, use different methods for us to kill our cravings so that we are able to maintain the healthy weight that we desire. Okay, so first off, are you ready to beat your cravings? I'm imagining that if you're here, you are. And looking into this refrigerator, it seems like there's plenty of healthy things in there, but maybe that's not exactly what she's craving. So when it comes to cravings, there's a lot of factors at play. Some are psychological, others are behavioral. So whatever the cause of your cravings, we're going to go into some of the causes, and then we're going to knock down the doors and try to figure out what we can do instead. We typically crave foods that are considered unhealthy or, of course, junk foods, and there's several reasons. And we're going to discuss all the reasons why during our time together. In addition to cravings causing, the causes of cravings, I'm going to talk a little bit about types of cravings, how to overcome them, and food swaps to help you control your cravings when they strike. So we're going to be talking a lot about this in the Facebook groups, whether it's Essential Team Power Diamond, or Oil Camp alumni. So stay tuned. There's going to be even more discussion about this in the week ahead. So of course, I want to welcome you. And here, these are the types of food that we honestly maybe don't crave on a regular basis. We eat them and we like them because we know they're healthy for us, but we don't necessarily crave these foods. I have to say, the one food that I used to crave, at least when I was pregnant with my children, and I find now in the wintertime, are the citrus fruits. So that orange on the right there actually is something that, in general, perhaps I don't get enough vitamin C, is something that my body does crave. We're going to challenge you to get to the bottoms of your cravings and overcome them. As a group, we're going to look to one another for support. And my goal is to help you understand what triggers your cravings and how cravings for unhealthy foods may be harming you. Over the course of this presentation, We're going to deconstruct different types of cravings. So, and talk about why sometimes cravings are just our body's way of communicating to you that something is missing from your diet. Others are triggered by specific foods, ingredients, or habits. And I do really understand how difficult it can be. I am not immune to cravings. Oranges are the least of which. I find that one of the things I absolutely cannot have in my house are corn chips, if I do, or what people call Dorito chips. If they're in my house, I will eat them, and so subsequently they are never in my house. And if my kids happen to bring them home, I actually throw them away. That's how tempting they are to me. Okay, so here's our first slide. Here's a gentleman looking into a refrigerator actually that's empty. This can be problematic because if we really don't have, or relatively empty, if we don't have things that we can substitute, then we will try to eat the things that are unhealthy. We want to talk about the difference between food cravings and hunger. So hunger is a survival mechanism controlled by the stomach. Cravings are controlled by the brain and all about your body communicating with you. Sometimes cravings are a way for your body to tell you something is missing from your diet. For example, chocolate craving may indicate your body is in need of magnesium. In this case, you'd be better off choosing nuts and seeds, legumes, or fruits. So the next time you experience a craving that can't be satisfied, let's try to explore its nutritional content to determine if any nutrients may be missing from your diet, which is what I was mentioning to you before when I talked about the oranges. We are going to be posting online some different links that will provide different detailed lists of foods and what your body may be craving, and those will be on the Facebook pages. So cravings can be caused by different regions of the brain. Different mechanisms responsible for cravings include the pleasure and reward center of the brain, an imbalance of hunger regulating hormones like leptin and serotonin, emotions driving you to seek comfort from food, or the release of endorphins following certain foods, mirroring an addiction. So interestingly enough, we can actually, and you see the lady with the big pile of sugar here. Sugar is one of those food substances that can be very addictive and can really cause us to fall down into a cycle of repeated desire, and then if it's fulfilled, desiring even more. Studies on mood have found that our emotional state normally has a greater impact on cravings than hunger. Next time you experience a craving, take notice of your mood or emotional state. By identifying an external trigger for a craving, you can find a better way to satisfy your emotional need. Sometimes when we overeat or we desire certain foods, it has nothing to do with the food or even some of the elements that the food contains. It more has to do with what it is that we desire and what we need to satisfy. For example, stress eating is extremely common. And if you are a stress eater, you want to try to minimize stress by planning ahead, meditating, using your oils, of course, and generally slowing down when possible. So I want you to think for a minute with this week, when you do feel like you have a craving coming on, to try to take a minute and stop and think, why am I having this craving? Maybe you can aim for a short activity to distract you from the craving, or maybe even use one of the lists that we're going to provide to eat something different. You want to try to look at stress reducing mechanisms, things like exercising, diffusing of essential oils, meditation, deep breathing, even things like painting or drawing or mandalas. These are sort of repetitive drawings, can be ways for you to reduce stress and also to keep you away from foods that you don't want to indulge in on a regular basis. So other likely causes for your cravings can be physical, psychological, and social motives, including suppressed thoughts. So for example, forbidding a certain food from your diet can intensify the cravings for the food you're trying to avoid. And that's definitely the case with me and corn chips. So what happens? I have the corn chips. I know I can't control myself, or I feel like I can't control myself with the corn chips. And so I just have to avoid the corn chips. But then what happens? If I go to a party, I literally have to run to the other side of the room, or I start munching on the corn chips like crazy, and then I have a lot of regret. It's very hard for me to eat just 1 or 2 corn chips, and that's, I don't know, it makes me feel terrible about myself. You also want to think about things like physical, psychological, and social motives, like context associations, such as eating popcorn during a movie, like we're seeing here. Lack of sleep can disrupt hormone levels, which may increase likelihood of craving. Dehydration can promote hunger and cravings in some people, and eating too little protein or fiber may also increase hunger and cravings. So when we look at why we're craving certain foods, or why we tend to reach for those forbidden foods on a regular basis when we'd really rather not, try to look also for external causes. Cravings can be the cause of many different things. Cravings can be caused by many different things, including nutrient deficiencies to stress or even hormonal shifts. Food cravings come in all shapes and sizes. Because drinking more water can help reduce certain cravings, you want to try to drink more water in general. And we talked about this last week when we were talking about mastering your metabolism. For drinking, and the calculation that you need to use. If you're drinking in ounces, you want to drink approximately 1 ounce per pound of body weight. So you would multiply your weight by a single ounce and then come out with how many ounces that you need to drink. So a 120-pound woman, who is about a standard-sized woman, would drink 120 ounces. If you are in a metric system, you want to multiply your kilos by 30 milliliters. So 30 milliliters, and then you would know how many milliliters. We figured out last time that a 120-pound woman would drink approximately 3.6 liters. Sounds like a lot, but an entire day, it really is a great way for you to fill up the stomach and also flush away toxins and really keep your metabolism moving. We want to also replace cravings. So if you're craving potato chips, for example, you may want to replace them with a salty snack that is higher in healthy fats and protein, such as cashews and walnuts. I've also found that crispy vegetables, maybe with a little bit of extra salt or chili on top, can reduce the cravings for things like potato chips or my ill-fated corn chips. For chocolate cravings, try for almonds or dark chocolate with at least 70% cocoa. Looking for a cacao nibs, also a great substitute for chocolate. Keeping small amounts. My husband, who is a chocolate lover, actually keeps the tiny chocolate chips that people use in cookies, and he measures himself out 1 tablespoon per night, and that's his treat. But because they're so tiny, he actually savors each and every one. They're almost like a miniature Hershey's Kiss. When you are craving candies or pastries, you might try to substitute with whole fruits, such as peaches or cherries, melon, dried fruits. I'm finding sometimes instead of eating something really sweet, like a cake or a cookie, a dried fruit provides that chew that I'm desiring, and also the little bit of sugar. You don't want to go crazy on any of these things, because really all of these things do have some calories on them. But certainly a piece of dried fruit is going to be many fewer calories than a cookie or a piece of cake or pastry. Ditching soda cravings can be a little bit easier. You can use citrus or essential oils in water. If you really still miss the sweetness, you can add a tiny bit of stevia. You can add a squeeze of fresh lime or lemon or orange juice to water, or a little bit of juice, and then fill up the glass with water. Can also cut the craving for soda. I know in our house, when our kids were growing up, we never gave them a full glass of juice. We would give them maybe a few milliliters of juice, and then the rest would be either plain water or sparkling water to kind of make it feel festive. So you want to think about replacing your cravings, and also maybe share with us what some of your favorite options for substitutions are when we get to our chat section. Okay, so let's talk about setting your goal. So if you do have food cravings and you don't have a goal, maybe this may be one of your problems. What you want to try to set up, and this says 2018, it should probably say 2019 at this point. But when we talk about setting goals, we want to talk about what's our goal with a specific area. Why do we want to reduce the cravings? So some people prefer to go cold turkey and give up cravings in one go. While this can work for some people, especially have a powerful motivator to get through the cravings, like losing weight in time for a wedding, or maybe for swimsuit season if you're going on some sort of a trip, it sometimes can make it worse for other people. Restraining the cravings in an intense way, not allowing yourself any sort of deviation, can actually cause sometimes what we call the rebound effect. So I want you to take some time to figure out what motivates you. For example, what's motivating you to resist a craving, and what motivates you to give in to one? It's okay to make compromises with yourself. Just make sure you're putting in the effort to make at least small changes along the way. If you don't already have a goal, I'd like you to make one. So today's task, what I want you to try to do is to share one short-term goal and one long-term goal with the group. And I'm going to ask you, you can start putting them in the chat. We'll talk about them later. Why do you want to reduce cravings? So some people will say, because I want to lose weight. Well, yes, but why do you want to lose weight? So is it to feel better in my clothes? Is it to get ready for a specific event? Let's talk about setting your goals. And then if you do feel the craving coming on, you can refer back to this paper. You want to put it in a prominent place so that if something is tempting you or you're going out to an event, you can look at the paper before you leave and then feel a little bit more secure in how it is you're going to react in that situation. So what are the consequences, right? So what are the consequences of eating that big donut for this young lady? So if she were to eat a single donut, of course, the consequences are fairly minimal. But we also find that cravings can lead to loss of control, which leads to negative consequences. So have you ever heard of a fiber crash? No, of course not. But a sugar crash, on the other hand, is definitely a consequence of large bursts of added sugar. For many of us, sweet treats, salty snacks, fatty foods top the cravings list. When eating these items in moderation, they can be part of a healthy, balanced diet. But when we feel the nagging urge to eat these foods constantly, our health can suffer, and certainly our waistline. Food cravings can lead to overeating, which is associated with a host of negative health effects, including type 2 diabetes, as we know, obesity, and certain cancers are even lifestyle related, as you know. And all of these are based on just a poor or deteriorating diet. If we continually give into high-calorie, low-nutrient foods, we may be causing issues in the gut. Gut health is linked to our ability to fight illness and impacts our moods, including the development of anxiety and depression. High-sugar foods are also linked to inflammation, which disrupts the gut and worsens other conditions in the body. The negative consequences are really virtually endless. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we can do to the consequence of our cravings, but let's talk about some of the things that products that we can use from doTERRA to cut the cravings. So number one on our list, I would say, would be black pepper. Black pepper is an excellent essential oil. It is a little bit spicy. You can wear it as a perfume. You can also add it to different beverages or foods, and you can take it in a capsule. I sometimes blend a couple of drops of black pepper with pink pepper now and green mandarin, and I add in my yarrow palm. So I blend all of these oils. I'll also blend in a little bit of ginger, and that's spicy. It's those spicy oils that really can reduce the cravings and help us not to feel as tempted. Want to always take these with a large amount of water, because essential oils will be flushing toxins, taking toxins out of our body, and we want to flush them out of our system. The other thing we can do is we can diffuse black pepper. Black pepper and ginger diffused in an office or in a kitchen space can actually smell spicy and fresh. And it's a wonderful way for us to be able to just smell something that relaxes us and reduces that brain activity that says, eat it, eat it, eat it. We want something that actually relaxes us and helps us to feel calm and resist and stop and think before we pick up that forbidden food. The other thing that we want to do when we talk about essential oils is talk about gut health. So our probiotic products, whether they are our PB Assist or a PBSS Junior can help you with gut health. Sometimes if we're just digesting our foods more fully, we can resist cravings, but because we are just not as hungry. We also want to use our Terrazyme on a regular basis after every meal to help us to add digestive enzymes back into our body so that we are digesting our foods regularly. Okay, mindful eating. We've talked about mindful eating actually almost 3 weeks in a row. We talked about it with our metabolism. We talked about it when we talked about reducing, just eating less, reducing the volume of food that we're eating. And our mindful techniques, as we mentioned in our 2 weeks ago, can include things like meditation, of course. It's been well studied and well known for practicing mindfulness. When it comes to food and cravings, practicing mindfulness is a way for us to distinguish between cravings and actual physical hunger. It teaches us to develop awareness of our eating habits, emotions, cravings, and physical sensations. To eat more mindfully, you need to practice being present while eating. This means slowing down, chewing thoroughly, and avoiding distractions like TV or your phone. So the goal is to learn to recognize the difference between cravings and actual hunger and to help you choose how to respond to the body. So when we talk about mindful eating, we talked about in the past actually putting down the fork, not just cutting and cutting and cutting, or walking through our meal in a dead shuffle. I know sometimes when I go to a food court or another place, it's so noisy and so loud. I eat as quickly as possible and try to get out of there. A better strategy probably would be for me to take the food, to bring it to a more quiet place, and then try to eat there. And also pause between bites. Maybe set a calendar for yourself or a clock for yourself. Are you able to eat just a little bit more slowly? Keep track of how it is that you're eating. And then you'll see that by setting that clock for 20 minutes, as opposed to gobbling through your food without any sort of timer, you really do feel much more full. Okay, recharge, rejuvenate, and renew. I love this little clock actually here on this plate because it reminds me of taking time not only to eat on a regular basis. It's not a wise idea to go all day without eating. When we do that, we actually force ourselves into a situation at the end of the day where we're starving and craving just everything at once and looking for something to satisfy us. So we do want to look at the clock and nourish our bodies throughout the day, drinking water, drinking hot beverages, and also allowing time to eat nutritious foods. If you've ever gone on a fast or a detox, you know that your experience actually can be fairly severe. Especially at first, you begin to look at the clock. Is it time to food? Is it time to eat? What's going on? So fasting involves abstaining from food, usually for a period of 12 hours or more, and it's been around really for centuries, probably for millennia. Detoxing includes elimination diets, herbal supplements, perhaps juice cleanses, focusing on ridding the body of toxins. A single detox can be done to help reduce cravings. You don't need to do a full-on fast, which can be challenging, but a simple detox involves drinking lots of water and eating only fruits and vegetables or very mild foods for a period of days or a single day, so that you do begin to detox from your normal routine, especially the thing that you are craving has become a daily habit. You want to eliminate also the temptations from your house. So by taking away the temptations from your house, you're going to be much more likely to resist that craving. Of course, if you pass the craving on your way to work every day, you may have to change your routine. Or if your craving is a result of going out to lunch with your coworkers, again, you may have to change your routine. Okay, so having a plan in place, this can be key. When am I craving? What am I craving? And what is my goal? So you see this measuring tape here on the left. I think sometimes by measuring ourselves as opposed to weighing ourselves, we get a much better idea of the progress that we are making. Also, how do our clothes fit? As we begin to reduce things that are foods that are not as healthy for us, how do we begin to fit into those clothes? I use the Slim and Sassy essential oils and the supplements, the gel caps on a regular basis, especially if I'm having difficulty or perhaps I'm going to a certain event and I just don't want to eat so much. The other thing that I'll do, and you see this on the right-hand side of this page, is perhaps eat a low-calorie vegetable or salad before leaving for an event. So let's say I'm going to a party. I know there are going to be a lot of fatty, tempting foods there. If I get there and I'm hungry, I'm going to be tempted to eat them. What will I do? Maybe I'll slice up that cucumber and that tomato and have a few slices before I go. Maybe I'll make myself a whole salad if I haven't had enough healthy foods during the day and I'm really feeling powerfully hungry. What I don't want to do is walk into a place where I don't know where the foods are, what the foods are. I don't have a lot of choices, and then I'm tasked with making decisions quickly. I want to get in there and not have my stomach perhaps be quite so empty, so that when I get to the event, I can make solid nutritional choices for myself. We want to look always at portion size. Portion size has to do with reducing cravings, but it also has to do with overeating. Try to weigh and measure your food for a few days and see what your portions have actually been like. If you've never weighed or measured your food in the past, get out your measuring cups and your scale and get a good idea of what it is that you've been eating. Sometimes we think that we're eating a small amount of calories, when just a small amount of extra rice or an extra piece of chicken or some extra vegetables with a little bit of extra oil can be hundreds of calories that we don't know that we're consuming. The other thing is also true. If we tend to eat tiny portions during the day, by the end of the day, we are genuinely hungry, and then we tend to overeat. You want to make sure that when you're talking about your portion control, instead of buying a gallon size of ice cream or a large carton of ice cream, look for the single serving cups and limit yourself to one or one every other day. If you're craving chocolate, maybe take a page out of my husband's book. Use those tiny little chocolate chips, or maybe chocolate-covered almonds or chocolate-covered raisins. Will they do the trick? And count them out and measure them. Check the backs of your packages. Does it say 10 in a portion size or maybe only 5? You want to think about the foods that you normally eat and prepare and watch those portions so that if you are craving something and you do decide to indulge in it, that you manage it as part of the total calories that you eat during the day. One of the ways that I love actually to manage calories and to keep my calorie count down for the day is to have a trim shake, perhaps for breakfast, maybe even for lunch. I don't usually have a trim shake for dinner. I try to eat a healthy, sensible dinner. But I find that if I have been during a period where I have been overeating, using a trim shake as a tool is an easy way for me to get back on track. The other thing that I find that's an easy way for me to get back on track is the LLV. I love the fact that the LLV now comes in daily packets that we can take with us. So convenient. You basically cannot forget to take your vitamins and minerals anymore. There's really no excuse. So I'm loving the new daily packs that you can take with you. I also love the traditional LLV. I keep it in a prominent place. I think that because my body does have all the vitamins and minerals that it needs, I just don't have the cravings that I used to. Okay, so now we want to talk about managing stress. A lot of what we do when we overeat or we have a craving is that we're trying to reduce stress. Did we have a fight with our boss or perhaps one of our friends? Are our children driving us crazy? Do we have too much work to do, or we feel like we have too many stress points coming up? Are we going to be visiting with some relatives that we don't particularly like in the next couple of weeks? What are our stressing points? It's interesting that sometimes we actually may have a major stressor coming up and we choose to divert ourselves with something else. I'll give you an example. I know that my son is a junior in high school and he has a lot of national tests that he has to be taking to be be prepared for university. He'll actually be applying to university in the fall. And so one of the things he loves to do is he loves to go to a certain section right near us, and they have a delicious kimchi rice. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's one of his favorite foods is kimchi rice. And they don't make it in many places near our home, but they do make it near the study center, which is where he needs to go to study for his national exams. So I made a bargain with him, and I said, okay, if you can go to such and such a school to practice for your national exams, I'll let you get 2 kimchi rices per week, 1 to eat for lunch on the day of the practice and 1 to take to school during the week. What's interesting is because he's able to eat 2 kimchi rices per week, he now doesn't have the craving for kimchi rice at all. And he's also actually, because he's going to a study center that's fairly rigorous, it's one of these tuition centers that's 9 to 5 each day, he kind of looks forward to the tuition center because of the kimchi rice. And I know that sounds totally crazy, but for him, he doesn't feel as much stress studying for his exams because he's able to have the kimchi rice, and yet he's not eating too much kimchi rice because he's limited himself to 2 packages per week. So bargaining with yourself like this can sometimes work. It doesn't work all the time, but in our particular case, because we don't necessarily live next to the restaurant that we could be over there every day, it's a great bargaining tip for him. And then once the tuition classes are finished and he takes his national exams, well, then he'll have to go back to finding some other substitution. But I like the fact that he's working through the stress of studying and the studying for getting ready for the exams by getting the thing that he wants and almost rewarding himself, if you will, but just not too much. So planning your meals, making sure you know when and where you're going to be eating. And let's talk a little bit more about stress for a second. When we talk about stress, we talk about that crushing sense of doom, if you will. What is it that we're doing? How are we going to get through this? I like to always tell my kids, let's take it one day at a time. One of the easiest ways to be in the moment and to be more present is to use your essential oils. I have to tell you, I actually love the new kids kit. I love it because I find that I'm able to roll on some of those roll-ons. They look really cute and fun. I don't keep them clipped to my purse. I think that would be a little bit too juvenile, but I keep them in my car, and I do drive around quite a bit, and I love Steady, really, and I like Rescuer. I like the fact that they just smell kind of fresh and clean, that the blends are a little bit more simple than the adult blends. I don't feel childish using them. Actually, I feel really great. And I like the fact that they're available at any time. I also like the yoga blends. The Arise blend is one of my favorites. If you look at the yoga kit, they don't come in roll-ons, but you can make your own roll-ons by putting 5 to 10 drops. I usually put actually 10 drops, maybe and even a few more, in a 10 milliliter roll-on bottle, and I'll carry that around with me. So the 3 blends in the yoga kit are wonderful for managing stress, for centering the body and the mind, and just feeling that confidence that you need, that you can get through each and every action that you need to during the day. Sometimes even something as small as a peppermint beadlet can be enough for you to center your thoughts, concentrate, refocus, and breathe and feel, this is something that I can handle. When we talk about breathing, talk about managing, sometimes we begin to breathe very shallowly, almost that sorry, that kind of huffing and puffing or shallow breathing, instead of breathing all the way down into our diaphragm and beginning to relax and feel the air go through our airways. We want to manage our stress, not just with our food, but especially with our essential oils, carrying them with us, rolling them on, breathing them in, and diffusing. Creating new habits. So I will tell you something that's a little bit interesting. I usually keep 1 diffuser in my office, and my office is fairly large, and it does have a door. It doesn't have a very super high ceiling, But it is a fairly nice sized room. I have to measure it in centimeters so that you can get a sense of the size of the room. But I used to only keep one diffuser in the room. And that was my habit, if you will. I would keep either one small diffuser on the desk, or I would keep a larger diffuser, an aroma ace, which kind of blasted the room with essential oils across the room. The problem with the diffuser across the room was that it didn't really provide enough moisture in the room, and the room became actually kind of dry. Especially now in the wintertime, the air here in New Jersey is extremely dry. But I was sort of lazy and not feeling like I wanted to add a water diffuser into the mix. I felt like 2 diffusers were enough. The other day, I actually had some of the team leaders over. I ran something here for our U.S. leaders called Silver Summit. When I get back to Asia, I'm going to be running there again. Super excited about running it. It's a 4-hour program, and we also kind of get together. We talk about what's good and what's not good. We have an agenda. We talked about things that went on in 2018 and what our expectations and goals and dreams are for 2019. However, changing habits, creating habits. For the first time, I actually set up 5 small water-based diffusers around the room. And what I found was it did a couple of different things. Many of the diffusers, and they were 5 different diffusers, if you can believe it, the diffusers actually provided a lot of moisture in the room. So I think everyone kind of stayed calm. The other thing that I found was that the air felt really kind of fresh and clean with this moisture coming into the room. Several of the diffusers actually had light therapy, which can be very soothing and creating just kind of a calm atmosphere and aroma. And for the 4 hours, all of the diffusers had 4-hour water capacity. Some actually had longer and continued to blow into the air for much more than 4 hours. But I liked the idea of just having that kind of varied effect of different diffusers in the air. So here's my challenge to you. Have you been diffusing in the same way with the same diffuser since you first started in doTERRA? Well, I'm going to challenge you to switch it up. Get out, maybe borrow a diffuser from a friend, move the diffuser to a different part of your room, maybe even purchase a new diffuser for yourself. It is a new year, and begin to see what is it that sparks my joy, if you will? What's kind of shaking me up and making me feel good? What's a new habit? Whether it's walking like this lady with her dog. This lady actually reminds me of my sister-in-law. I have 5 sisters-in-law because my husband is from a very big family. And one of my sisters-in-law is blonde and slim like this lady. And she has a dog, not exactly like this one, but she gets out every day. And I think creating that new habit can be a wonderful way for you to really feel good about yourself and step away from your cravings by creating that new habit. Okay, engineered cravings. So now this is a tricky one. When we talk about engineered cravings, we talk about foods that are actually made in laboratories that are forcing us to eat more. And this is a very tricky subject. So the foods we crave the most, how many are processed? So I find that the few foods that I do have cravings for, except for oranges, are actually made in some sort of a factory. There's a reason we're often compelled to eat certain foods, and it's not poor willpower. A number of investigative studies have linked certain food additives to food addictions. Sugar, salt, and fat are the top 3 substances making processed foods so addictive. Food engineers are employed specifically to get you hooked on foods that are convenient and inexpensive to make. Food manufacturers use sophisticated taste science to determine the bliss point, imagine, that makes you crave even more. And the bliss point is like a range where ingredients are most desirable. So it's not a specific thing geared towards one individual. It's sort of a range. And what happens is the brain responds to the bliss point by releasing endorphins that make us feel good. The brain remembers what we did to get that good feeling and makes us want to do it again. Combinations of sugar, fat, and salt act synergistically and are more rewarding than any one alone. So I'm going to tell you a little story about me and bubble tea. And many of you who know me and know that I've been to Asia multiple times know that I really love bubble tea, but had gotten to sort of a fevered pitch. And I wanted bubble tea and was craving it all the time. And I began to think that perhaps either the dye in the tea or the sugar in the tea was something that was just kind of causing a chemical reaction in my brain. And I had to say I've virtually given it up. I've allowed myself to have maybe one or two bubble teas in the last year. And that also had to do with my goal of losing weight. When 2 years ago, when I first started this journey, I had put on a lot of weight as a result, mostly of stress and eating mindlessly. And when I set my goal to really reduce my stress, change my eating habits, and begin to eat more mindfully, bubble tea was one of those things that had to go. And so now sometimes when I pass the bubble tea kiosk, I look at it wistfully and I think, oh, maybe just one. But then I think, no, it's really not good and it doesn't help me with my goals. Now, if I were to go to someplace special and I planned for my bubble tea and I made it's a special event for me, then absolutely I can indulge in a bubble tea from time to time. But I really did have to change some of my habits and the places that I visited so that I didn't see or come in contact with the bubble tea kiosk. And so now that's full disclosure for all of you about my bubble tea and my corn chip habits. Okay, let's talk a little bit about cheese. Now, I know that cheese is not as popular in Asia, but it is super popular in the United States and Europe, and cheese can be very addictive. First of all, let me just say that cheese can be part of a healthy diet, but that cheese and other dairy can contain high levels of saturated fat, which has been linked to high cholesterol, arterial sclerosis, and increased risk of heart disease. So many people don't even realize that cheese can be addictive. High-fat foods promote cravings in the reward center of the brain. Cheese is special because it contains an ingredient called casein, and casein is a protein found in all milk products. During digestion, casein releases opiates called casomorphins, which interact with the dopamine receptors and trigger that addictive element. So those of you who are cheese lovers, just beware. The best way to beat cheese addiction is to gradually replace cheese with something else. There are tons of dairy-free options available, and many dishes don't actually need cheese. It's just become habit to add cheese to everything. So if your final task is to cut perhaps fatty foods, you may have to also look at cheese. And when my husband went through his physical problems 3 years ago now, we actually eliminated all cheese from our diet. We don't even purchase it anymore, except perhaps if we have a party and then we buy a small amount and we don't replace it. So we've gone through how to eat mindfully, how to replace foods with other foods. I asked you to type in the chat, what are your goals? Why are you trying to reduce cravings? And I'm leading you to the end. Okay, we did it. We got to the end of this presentation, but there's still going to be more. There's going to be more in your chat groups, more in your, especially on the Facebook pages. Take a look for it, and continue to look at, to analyze, to really think about, why am I craving the things I do, and how can I make other healthy substitutions? Use your oils, use your supplements, diffuse, become mindful. You really can tackle it. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's been on this presentation for the last 4 weeks. I feel like we've gone through weight loss every which way. If there's something that I haven't mentioned and you still have a question, please type it in the chat group. And now I'm just going to stop the share. Okay. All right, in the chat groups. And then, today we're talking about the gift today. The prize today is going to be pink pepper. And I chose pink pepper because I feel like it's a great essential oil to use in combination with other oils. It also has a delicious spicy scent. You can use it with black pepper and ginger. You can also combine it with green mandarin and turmeric and yarrow palm in a capsule. I find that it doesn't upset my stomach at all. If anything, it's very settling to the stomach, and I really enjoy it. So goals for anybody who wants to tell me a little bit about their goals. Oops. Why do you want to stop? What's something that you crave, and why do you want to stop it? I'll give you a minute. I have a pencil today, everyone. And actually, I'm going to stop the share right now. There we go.